All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're cracking open a truly legendary book. We're going to uncover the revolutionary and, believe me, deeply controversial origin story of Dungeons & Dragons' very first monster manual. So, what comes first? The player or the monster? You'd think it's the player, right? Well, for the world's most famous RPG, the answer is, weirdly enough, the monster. And the story behind this book, oh man, it's this wild ride of corporate backstabbing, artistic drama, and a cultural firestorm nobody saw coming.
Okay, so let's get into this, because the publication history is just bonkers. I mean, think about it. You release a book full of monsters before you even publish the rules for the heroes. It's such a strange move, and it basically threw the whole player base into this weird 2-year limbo.
So you've got TSR, the OG publisher, dropping this book of bad guys a full year before the player's handbook even existed. Can you imagine? Early dungeon masters had to awkwardly Frankenstein the new, advanced monster stats with their old, simpler rulebooks. They were basically trying to reverse engineer the future of the game just by looking at the math for a goblin.
And here's the real kicker. This crazy release schedule wasn't a mistake. Not at all. The whole creation of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons was a calculated corporate move. It was all about creating a separate, distinct intellectual property so they could sidestep paying royalties to the game's co-creator, Dave Arneson. It was all about the money.
I mean, check this out. Gary Gygax himself made this wild and honestly pretty baffling claim in '79. Can you imagine being a player back then? You're reading this totally confused because you've been using the monster manual with your old D&D set for 2 years. This quote, it makes it crystal clear. This book wasn't just a game supplement, it was the first shot fired in a legal and corporate war.
All right, so let's move on. Because it wasn't just corporate drama. The actual race to get this book printed, wow. We're talking bestiaries, binders, and a whole lot of midnight oil. The story of how it was made is just as crazy as the creatures it describes.
So here's something you might not know. The monster manual, as legendary as it is, wasn't actually the first of its kind. Nope. TSR was in this nail-biting race with a rival publisher, Chaosium, and Chaosium actually beat them to the punch with their own monster book.
And look how close this race was. Chaosium put their books out as these loose-leaf pages you'd stick in a binder, which is fine. But TSR, they had a secret weapon, something that was about to change the entire industry, pure production value. This was the hardcover revolution. By publishing in this sturdy, durable hardcover format, TSR basically performed magic. They took role-playing games out of the world of cheap, stapled-together zines and turned them into these legitimate, permanent reference books. I mean, it looked like an encyclopedia on your shelf, not some throwaway pamphlet. And that one move set a new standard for the entire hobby, forever.
And the art? The art has a story of its own. It was born from pure last-minute chaos. The lead artist was working way too slowly, and with the deadline breathing down their necks, another artist, David Sutherland, realized huge chunks of the book had no art at all. So what did he do? He pulled an all-nighter, single-handedly drew the entire dinosaur section just to get the thing to the printer. And get this, he later secretly went back and redrew art directly on the printing plates for the second printing, even adding the now famous wings to the chimera that were missing in the first one. What a legend.
Okay, so beyond the business drama and the production race, the book itself was a revolution. The monster manual didn't just give you a list of things to fight. No, it completely changed how we think about creatures in a fantasy world. It took them from being, just game pieces on a board and turned them into living, breathing organisms.
And maybe its most important legacy, the thing we still use today, is the standardized stat block. This was a game changer. Before this book, monster stats were all over the place, buried in these huge, confusing tables. The monster manual put this simple, elegant block of data right at the top of every entry. And just like that, it made being a dungeon master infinitely easier. It transformed the job. And the jump in detail was just massive. We went from just basic combat numbers to this rich profile with stuff like frequency, how often you might run into one, plus their special attacks, their intelligence, their alignment. All of a sudden, encounters could be these complex puzzles. It wasn't just about rolling dice to see if you hit anymore.
And this, for me, is where the real genius is. The book introduced this idea of dungeon ecology. Suddenly, weird monsters like the gelatinous cube or the carrion crawler, they had a reason to exist. They were the cleanup crew, the scavengers. This one little idea made dungeons feel like real, living ecosystems, not just a random collection of rooms with monsters waiting inside.
And talk about planting seeds for the future. With one single, almost throwaway line buried in the entry for elves, the manual basically created the entire Drow saga. Yep, one of D&D's most popular and epic storylines, all born from this tiny little whisper of lore.
It's amazing.
But here's where the story takes a really dark turn. Because this groundbreaking book didn't just build an industry, it also became the ground zero for a nationwide moral panic. It's almost hard to believe.
So you've got this dual legacy, right? On one hand, inside the gaming world, it was hailed as this invaluable tool that professionalized the whole hobby. But on the other hand, to the outside world, it became Exhibit A in the Satanic Panic of the 1980s, a total lightning rod.
The problem was the detailed profiles and illustrations, especially for demons and devils. Critics looked at this stuff, and they didn't see fantasy. They saw what they believed was a genuine guide to the occult. I mean, they looked at these descriptions of demons and devils, and they weren't seeing a game. They thought it was a literal instruction manual for devil worship.
And that cultural pressure just snowballed. After a tragic suicide, a group called BADD, that's Bothered About Dungeons and Dragons, was formed, and they went on the attack, using the Monster Manual as their main piece of evidence. The media firestorm got so intense that eventually TSR had to self-censor. They scrubbed their most iconic villains, demons and devils, from the game just to stay in business.
Yeah, the legacy of that panic was huge. It led to straight-up corporate censorship. In the game's second edition, demons and devils got these weird new names, Tannery and Batezu. Why? To appease what one TSR executive actually called the Angry Mother Syndrome. And that decision, that act of self-preservation, ended up changing the game's lore for decades to come.
So, you have to ask, the Monster Manual built worlds, for sure. But was its biggest impact actually in our world? It's just an incredible story. This one book. It didn't just define a hobby or professionalize an industry. It became this completely unexpected soldier in a 20th century culture war. It's a true artifact, not just of game design, but of history itself.